Unit 5, page 2. What is immunity? Do now. If someone is immune to a pathogen, what does this mean? Pause the video here and take a minute to fill out your do now. When you're ready, hit play. If someone is immune, it means their body has already created the correct shape antibody to recognize the antigen of that pathogen. Remember, it's an important concept that antibodies fit the specific shape of the antigens. How the immune system works. The immune system recognizes cells that do not belong to the body or are foreign, and it does this by recognizing the receptors on the cell membrane. The immune system is constantly making antibodies of different shapes in small amounts until the system is activated by an antigen of the same shape. So just like enzymes, it fits together like a puzzle piece. Our body's defenses are divided into two categories: specific, otherwise known as adaptive immunity, and nonspecific, otherwise known as innate immunity. There are three areas of the nonspecific immunity. There are the macrophages or white blood cells that will ingest or engulf pathogens, the mucous membranes that, think about your nasal passages and your stomach lining, these prevent pathogens from entering the body, and there's something called the inflammatory response. The inflammatory response happens when you get injured or when you puncture your skin, like in this picture. You can see a splinter punctures through the skin. There are pathogens on the splinter. Blood flow to the area will significantly increase, causing redness and swelling. You'll even start to feel in the injured area a larger pulse. And again, that's because blood is being rushed to the site of injury, because within the blood, we also have the white blood cells. And the white blood cells are traveling to that site of possible infection to attack and destroy any pathogens that might have entered the body. Now, the specific response gets its name because, again, of the cell receptors being specific shapes. So the antibodies are going to recognize the specific shaped antigen on the pathogen. So for the specific immune response, we start with the macrophages. So again, an immune response is when something that's foreign enters the body. The macrophages will engulf these. Then they'll activate the helper T cells. The helper T cells will activate both the B cells, which make antibodies, and the killer T cells, which will kill. And then after the infection, your body is going to leave some B cells and killer T cells in reserve in what we call memory cells, so that if you ever encounter the infection again, you already have the correct shaped antibodies to fit that pathogen. So let's take a look at the picture here. So this is on the back of your notes. We can see if a virus enters the body, the first step is that they'll be recognized by the macrophage, otherwise known as antigen-presenting cells. They will then communicate with the helper T cells, showing the shape of the antigen to the helper T cell. So the helper T cell with the correct shaped antibody on the outside will then activate, so we have the helper T cells matching those correct shaped receptors, will activate both the B cells, which form plasma cells to make antibodies, as well as the cytotoxic T cells, which are going to kill and destroy any cells that are infected. And again, the antibodies, it's important to remember that they are the correct shape to match those viral antigens. So let's look at some questions. What is the inflammatory response and how does it help you maintain homeostasis? How is the specific response specific? And what is immunity? Please stop the video here so that you can try to answer the questions. When you're ready, hit play. Okay, let's check your answers. So inflammatory response is when we're going to have this swelling or redness, so more blood is flowing to the area, therefore it's bringing more white blood cells. That's how it's maintaining homeostasis. Number 2, antibodies are a specific shape for different shaped antigens or pathogens. And number 3, if you have an antibody to fight that pathogen, that's what immunity is. Now, in summary, how do you develop immunity? So this is on the back of your handout. Taking a look at that same picture that you saw in the previous slides, think about how you develop immunity. Stop the video here to write your response. When you're ready, hit play. The virus infects the body cells. The macrophage is going to engulf the virus. Macrophages activate helper T cells. Helper T cells then activate both B cells and cytotoxic T cells. After the B cells are activated, they form something called plasma cells, which just means that they're secreting antibodies of that specific shape to match the antigen. Your immune system is then going to create memory cells so that you remember this virus so that you can quickly produce antibodies against it if you ever encounter this pathogen again.